Welcome to House of Agents. And now, here's your hosts, Tessa and Ramon.
Welcome, everyone, to our episode.
To our podcast.
Welcome to our podcast. This is the House of Agents podcast. And that being said, of course, we're going to talk about all things like related to real estate. And it's funny, I was actually outlining all of these different categories today for something else I'm working on within my own business. And I was looking at like the main points that people struggle with in real estate, whether it's a struggle or it's just like something that can always be optimized, increased, and made much better than it is. No matter how good you think you are, it can always get better. So that kind of brings us into a great topic, which is one that I think a lot of agents struggle with. And of course, this applies to really anybody in like a sales position of any kind. And I guess it also relates to how you follow up with people in your life, like the relationships that you're pursuing and the things that you want to achieve or accomplish. So today we're going to talk a bit about follow-up and how to be better at it, how to not give up, and some of the winnings that may have been collected along the way with some supreme follow-up.
I would say also the creativeness of the follow-up, because I don't think, I do think agents have a problem with follow-up, like that they struggle to actually do it until they get the result, but it's also the way you do it. Mm-hmm. There's some, and I can obviously get into more detail about that as we break down follow-up and how it pertains to real estate business. So, I mean, I don't know, let's kick it off with what's like, follow up. I think that's one of those buzzwords that you hear and it's like, okay, what does that even mean, follow up? So I think follow up, let's just start with the bare basic, right? It means to get back in contact or attempt contact with someone you are pursuing. We're just going to keep this to real estate for right now.
Merriam-Webster over there.
Yeah, really trying. Attempting contact with someone who you are, looking to speak with about a specific topic. We'll just keep it to real estate sales. Mm-hmm. And I mean, as of right now, as far as I know, people do that through text, through phone call, through email, and through some type of direct message. And that's pretty much all social media platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it. One thing that it is funny because obviously mostly what I teach people and talk about is social media. And I think that there's a lot of ways that they all connect. I know that's no secret to you, but I think a lot of times people like segment these things of their business so much. They think, oh, I have to focus this on social media, this on follow-up, this on calling new leads. When in reality, there's so much that really ties between all of those different pieces that's going to make it, either work or not work for you. And one of the things I find so funny, and this is probably a first best lesson for everybody, is like on social media, how often have you seen somebody I'm sure they were told that they needed to do a call to action, right? So their call to action is like, call me if you want to buy or sell your house.
Yeah. And
not only does that probably never happen from your social media post, someone sees that and thinks, oh yeah, I should really call Ramon right now. But it also is not playing into the platform for which you're in. And so not to make this about social media, but it does relate back directly to follow up as well, because you need to think about, of all of those different ways you can follow up that you just mentioned, phone call, text message, email, smoke signal, bird with a note on its ankle, whatever you choose to do, you have to kind of like play into that.
I was thinking about what I was going to say next. And then you said bird with a note. What do you call it? A note ankle?
Yeah,
ankle
like it's tied onto its ankle. But regardless, like all jokes aside, you have to think about where you're coming across. And part of the reason is it's so easy, especially in written communication, for things to be misinterpreted. We talked about this a lot last week, but I could send you a text message that says, great, thank you. And I'm thinking like, oh, that was so awesome. I'm so glad he did that. And you could read it in like, great, thanks, like as if I was being rude. And so it gives a lot of opportunity for things to not only be misinterpreted, but also there's not as much of that genuine connection that can come through in most of those forms of follow-up. So first, why don't you tell us your favorite form of follow-up? Of course, it's going to change by the situation, but do you have like a default that you always go to?
Yeah, I have a default. Well, I mean, let's again keep it. I think there's two. I think when you think about social media, the power of social media is that when you message somebody or you like their story or comment or you engage, it is a stress-free experience for the other person most of the time, because they are able to see who you are, what you're about, if they know you or not, more or less what you do for a living, who your significant other is. Like, it brings comfort to know like who's on the other side of that text message or of that direct message. But then there's like the text message, phone call, email. And at least text message and phone call, I feel like now it's almost like a little invasive to get a random text message. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just like, oh, hey, like, who are you? So to me, I like to think about people who I maybe don't have as a strong relationship with yet. I like to do more of that on social media because they get a better feel for me. And usually the people that I'm messaging or I'm text messaging or calling, we already have that know, like, and trust factor, more or less. So one thing that I always like doing, and this is just a strategy for anyone who has the MLS, it's Flex and it's called all these other things. But if you have MLS mobile, one thing I would do is I would always set my app to a 24-hour reset. So all the new listings, pending, closed, expired, withdrawn, canceled. And I would check that thing. It's funny. I live in Phoenix now. I still check Albuquerque's almost daily. And it's just out of a habit. But the reason I check it is because I knew my market so well. So when a house would pop up on the street of someone who I know, whether it just sold, closed, just went on the market, just went pending, I would send it to him and be like, wow, check this out. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Like I would just talk about, I want to talk about real estate. I do want to get to know them as well, but I'm letting him know, like, I'm an expert and I'm watching the market at all times. So that's one thing I used to love to do, is from a text message, I would just fire it off and just, make small talk about the sale though.
Yeah. Well, it creates a lot of opportunity in that, because also if you had active buyers and maybe you have them on some kind of drip, every time something comes up, instead of obviously they're going to get that to their inbox, we can see all that jazz. But if you take that extra initiative, it's opened up the door. It created this opportunity for you to call and have something genuine to talk about, rather than just like, hey, you still don't want to buy? Okay, cool.
If you want to become a better agent, there's only one place to do it, and that is BAMX.
Everyone tells you what to do, but BAMX shows you how to do it.
Whether it's creating the perfect green screen video, overcoming objections, or creating scroll-stopping captions, BAMX has it.
Click the link below and use the code HOA for 10% off your yearly subscription at checkout.
In a mindset shift I went through, I even just did a poll about this the other day on social media, was, do people find the house first, then find the agent, or do they find the agent and then find the house? My experience has been they get into the market looking for a house and then start thinking about an agent. But the thought of the market and the property and the house and what they're looking for comes first. And then the agent may be attached to the listing. Maybe you tell your mom that you're thinking about buying a house. She refers you to your Aunt Sally. Like, that's just how it goes, right? So my thought is, if I can put properties or put scenarios in front of somebody who might be thinking about the market, that, they'll use me because of it. So just staying in front of them because they want to know what's going on in the market, not necessarily always me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, there's a lot to be said for just purely the volume at which you remind people and show people that you are still in real estate and that you are setting yourself apart from other people. And I think that I keep tying it back to real estate, or to social media, but I think that's a big reason. Like, so many people get discouraged because they'll start posting on social media. It maybe doesn't get the likes that you want, the comments, whatever it may be. It can be discouraging because you don't see that instant gratification for the effort that you put in. But there is so much value in simply the long-term consistency. I can't tell you how much has come out of just showing up on social media on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for 6+ years. I have this certain reputation. I have this certain ability to connect with people because of what they've seen me consistently do over time, even if that doesn't reflect in the actual engagement on that post.
Correct.
I think that's a really important point. And it does also remind me of something I teach a lot, which is frequency without relevance is simply annoyance. And so typically when I say that, I'm sure you're going to steal that one tomorrow for your team meeting, but
well, it's Wednesday, but
so I typically say that as it relates to posting on social media. If I were to just get online, post a bunch of random stuff with absolutely no relevance to the people I'm trying to connect to, then it's going to start to get annoying. They're going to be like,
Correct.
oh my gosh, this girl is just... out of control.
Or like text message, are you still thinking about buying or still thinking about selling? Yeah,
and so that's my point
annoying,
is unless you find a way to make it relevant, the frequency is going to be radically annoying. But if you find some way to make every interaction, or at least the majority of them with your, prospects, whatever you want to refer to them as, if you make the majority of those interactions relevant to them, then the frequency almost doesn't matter. You could text me 100 times a day if everything you shared was something really valuable and actually pertained to where I was at or what I was trying to accomplish. But if you text me even once a week and it's just annoying, there's no relevance to what I'm going through or what's going on, the chances of me, wanting to actually engage or respond with that is going to decrease significantly.
Another mindset shift while you were talking, I was thinking about is that you look at, I always like to use the know, like, and trust factor. And when you get to the trust, you wonder like, well, how do I get somebody to trust me who I've never met before? And to your point, the consistency, whether it's on social media or the follow-up, like even though someone might not respond to your text, they might not respond to your social media post, the fact is they saw it. And, text message have a 98% open rate. I bet you that's going to go down in the coming years because all the spam we get. But still, they saw it. And so whether you know it or not, like you can't let that be like, oh man, no one's responding, that did nothing. It's like, no. That definitely is building trust. Like I know there's text messages that I've gotten, I didn't respond to them, but I still like, I know they happened. Or, maybe someone says something good to you or someone says something bad. You remember it. Just because you didn't respond doesn't mean it didn't affect you. You didn't think about it. So just know like your follow-up doesn't always need to be answered with like immediate for you to consider it successful.
In fact, most of the time it
Correct.
Won't be.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust the process of knowing that does every single interaction makes a difference. Same thing with emails. There's so much power in just seeing somebody's name pop into your inbox and maybe the subject line, but I can't tell you how often I have not even opened or read an email, but the fact that they were constantly there, I was like, this person is getting it. So then finally, when I do read one, I have a little bit more of a personal buy-in to what I may be consuming because I've seen them show up in my inbox every couple days for a year.
Yes. And I will agree with that to an extent. The only difference though is that you can, just like you said, if you email someone or text them with something that's not very relevant, if you're constantly messaging me, which I get lenders, probably 20 lenders a day message me something, and on the holidays, probably about 50 emails. They all have the same subject line. They're all from the same, Market Watch or Market View thing they subscribe to as a company. And that doesn't make me feel very valued. So I think that like what you're saying is that you could email me and you can be very frequent with that or follow up. But if it's not content that makes me feel like you wrote it for me, or that it's specifically for me, I don't think there's a lot of value in that. So I would go to say, like, if you have a lot of things automated right now where you have like companies that are sending out little like templated emails that you send to your entire database, like I'm not going to say those are bad, but I'm going to say just know the value is in the inefficiency, because when you give somebody your time and you take the time, like the most valuable thing you have is time. So when you give it to somebody else, right, it's why a handwritten card means so much more, exact same words than one that was typed, is because someone took a pen, was looking at it, wrote it down for you, and then gave it to you. It's just it's like a subconscious, I don't even know how to explain it. Like you just understand when people are giving you your time. So that phrase, the value in the is in the inefficiencies, is I think is crucial to understanding how you can. And I think we're getting to this is like differentiate yourself from every other, because believe whether you're learning it today for the first time or not, you're not the only agent out there who's trying to pursue that person as a client.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not. And you're cutting through the noise of every other marketing email that they get from the 15 different clothing stores and Amazon and all kinds of other stuff that they're also subscribed to. So it is very important, and it's simple things like that go and make such a big difference. So I think an easy takeaway right then and there for people is just taking that little bit of extra time And I'm all about automating stuff. I love to have things as automated as possible, but to take that extra couple minutes that it takes, or truly couple seconds that it takes to put in that one line prior where you're acknowledging them by name, maybe referring to something you spoke about recently, acknowledging time of year, if it was just the weekend, hope you had a great weekend, like little tiny things like that. That opening line, just as important as it is when you're making dials, that opening line in an email or a text message or a DM can be the thing that gets your message opened and responded to or not. And to piggyback off that, I think the second most important thing, because you talked a lot about like you like to, with the people you don't connect with as much, typically go through social media first because they can do their own little due diligence. They can research you a little, see what you're up to, see what you're all about. One of the biggest instant just shutdowns for me is when I get a DM or a message on Facebook or something, and within the first line, I can tell that this person did not read a single thing on my profile, did not look through any piece of content, like anything. Because if you were to consume even a tiny bit of my content, or you genuinely wanted to connect with me, you would know at least that I'm not just a traditional real estate agent.
Yeah.
And I get a DM and it's like, hey, Tessa, hope that home sales are going well for you this year. Do you want to try out our new lead gen service? It's only $800 a month. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, you obviously didn't close me on that deal, but you definitely didn't even look at my profile. It takes a couple extra seconds to notice maybe where I'm from, if we have some mutual connections, like, am I traveling? Did I just post something in Cabo? Maybe you could acknowledge that. Like those little things, like you said, values in the inefficiencies.
Yeah, there you go. You can steal that one. I'm giving you permission.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the difference here is when I reference a quote that was from someone else, I typically give credit.
I stole that one from Andy Frisella. I'm going to come clean.
Okay. See, the truth comes out.
I stole that one from him. And it was talking about why their company sends handwritten notes with all their shipments. And it was just everything I said. But yeah, I mean, I think the other part about, about social media and just general follow-up is just playing the long game, because I think that we all get a little discouraged if, we're not getting the responses we desire. And there's something to be said for if somebody has an address, right? A home address that they own, statistically, we know they're going to sell that house statistically, not everybody, but 5 to 7 years. So if you plan on being in the business longer than that, like, they should full blown be a part of your marketing plan and your follow-up. Now, follow-up, I think this is another mindset shift for me, at least, is that follow-up isn't only for people who have shown interest in buying or selling. So giving examples, like you're going through your sphere of influence, or you're going through your leads, and you're like, okay, I'm going to follow up with so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. They thought they might want to sell. They were looking at new homes. This person just got pre-qualified. Like, you're doing your follow-up. That's great. But then, especially in this market going forward, like, you are not going to have the same amount of inquiries that you've been having. Like, just the general population who's talking about real estate, and you're pulling clients in, whether you have like a Zillow, Realtor.com, or whatever lead source, there's supposed to be 1/3 homes. So it's supposed to 6 million homes were sold in 2021, and we're expecting about 4 to 4.2 in 2023. So that's 1/3 of the home sales gone. So 30%, you just chop off your pipeline by 30% in theory going forward. So if it's not going to be new people coming in, then where do you get those? Where do you fill that additional pipeline from? Well, it's the people that you already have in your database. So follow-up isn't only for people who are like raising their hand, but it's people that you've contacted years ago. And you have to have, and I think there is a level of, because you can't just follow up every day with 1,000 people. There is a level of automation, but especially using your CRM to find different AI and different, I mean, when I say AI, it's not anything special. Like, no, I'm not like some, there's not some freaking algorithm I'm talking about. It's just like, hey, every person who has an address should have a market report being sent to them on a monthly basis.
And that's easy to automate.
And that's easy to automate, correct. And then, but this is where the values and the inefficiency is, that you look and say, hey, okay, Tessa opens and clicks on 50% of my emails and reads every market report I send. Think it'd be a good idea to give her a call? Probably. And then you make the phone call and you go from there. But so I just want to I don't know if I'm being clear, but I want to make that a point is that follow-up is not just for people who are in front of you. Like you want to view your entire list of people you have. You're going to follow up differently depending on who they are and what stage in the game they're in. But yeah, it's really important to know that.
Well, you also, of course, there's a lot of value, right, in ranking your leads and how hot they are and all this kind of stuff. And there's like that matrix for which we then take action based on that. But there's also so many factors that can change somebody who told you that they were never going to buy ever, and they told you to literally F off and never call them again. And then like the next day they get a job offer in a different state or something. And
Correct.
so there's a lot to be said for timing, perseverance, persistence. And then of course, I think that the higher frequency of follow-up and the more touches that you have, the more nimble you remain to pivot when something changes in the market or when something changes in their life. But there are so many factors outside of our control, whether it is like economically driven or it's in their own personal lives. Or maybe I've also had many times where I had somebody who told me like, no, for whatever reason. We'll continue on this real estate example, but they told me, no, not interested. No need to call me back. I'm good kind of thing. And I was like, respectfully, I will be calling you next month, but thank you for that. But then with the emails and stuff that I kept sending, and part of that was my drip campaigns that was automated. Some stuff was more customized, but between email campaigns and social media posts, there was something I shared. I think it was something to do with like, at the time it was like a first time buyer program and it was like they had opened up more funds or something like that. So I did a video about it and I had this whole post, and I then got a call from them expressing their intent, was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was even an option. And so it may be that whether it's relevant to them or not, it may be that you haven't yet hit that hot button for them that could just be the right time, the right place, the right solution. And so as discouraging as it can feel sometimes, like follow up, you almost have to completely blind yourself to the result that you're getting at the time and just continue on the path that you've set out to accomplish. Of course, adjusting accordingly, but you kind of cannot take the feedback that people give you to literally.
Yeah.
And just be like, yeah, I respect that you don't want me to call you anymore, but I'm absolutely still going to call you.
Yeah. And also too, it's like I think a lot of agents struggle with, you don't have this fear of, okay, I'm just going to call you down the road. But they're like, oh my God, like I don't want to upset you. Like, I don't want you to go like post on Facebook that I'm so annoying and no one use me. But in reality is that if you have a service that you truly believe in, and you do believe that under any circumstance you will do what's in someone's best interest, and you come from that place, like you're doing them a favor by being the person who's in front of them willing to help. And I think you have to make that clear in your follow-up some way. Is like, I don't care if you have a 500 credit score or, you got $10 million in the bank. Like, I'm here to help you however I can. And sometimes that is the resource, that is the follow-up, is being a resource. With anything they need. And I think that goes back to social media, like watching and trying to support and help people wherever you can, like being a facilitator of connections, being a facilitator of knowledge. Like, this is how people see value in you. And then they start going, oh, well, shoot, Ramon knows XYZ. Like, I might as well ask him about this. Yeah. Right. And I think there's a lot to be said there. And the other thing, before I forget, this is a major real estate, tactical, tangible, implementable golden nugget alert. Yeah, we should get a bell. Ding ding ding. Ready for this? Okay. It's called CLEs, critical life events. And so, in the last couple of years, it was very sexy to sell real estate. Debt is cheap and appreciation's through the roof. Everyone wants to buy, everyone wants to sell. If not, they're thinking about it. But now you go to a little bit of a different economic climate. However, there's still a bottom layer of transactions that's always moving regardless of economic outlook or regardless of current climate. And those are all based, in my opinion, majority of them are critical life events. So those are going to range from, somebody is having a child, somebody is getting divorced, somebody got a new job offer, somebody lost their job, somebody lost a family member. Somebody in their family or themselves have health concerns that, they need to make adjustments in their lifestyle. The list goes on and on. They graduated college. They got did I already say promotion? They got a promotion. They got a demotion, right? Like there's,
woo.
Yeah. Woo. So you want to train yourself to watch on social media, especially because that's where you see a lot of these announcements. Now, not everyone, I mean, actually, I lied. Yeah, a lot of people do go on social media and talk about their problems. And I look at those as opportunities. Like I would be sliding into the DMs, say, hey, read your post. Oh my gosh, XYZ, have you thought about, whatever you think might be applicable to them at the time.
Yeah. But
that CLEs, understanding that all of your database has CLEs, and like you mentioned, they can happen anytime, right? Like someone says, oh, I'm going to sell. I heard this one a million times. I'm going to sell when my last daughter graduates high school. Me and my wife are going to go, like I've heard that a million times. And I see the house on the market, like, I don't know, 5 months later. And so you don't need the most clients. So you want to kind of like you don't want to be fixated on, I have to have this huge pipeline coming in. You definitely need pipeline, but you need the most loyal clients. You build loyal clients, right, by tuning into what they need, talking to them frequently, supporting them any possible way you can. And when the time is right, pop in the right question about, hey, real estate is it in the future? What are we doing here? And I think that's important to know, because that's, if you think about it, that just summed up what follow-up really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going along that same thread, I love those, the CLEs, but also this is a thought I had a lot in real estate. Okay. So you just threw out the statistic. We'll use yours, whether it's right or wrong. We're going to use it.
It's probably right.
That the average person, sells within 5 to 7 years or something. What was your stat you made up?
I didn't make it up. It's a certified real estate from the National Association of Realtors statistic that the average homeowner will buy or sell a property within 5 to 7 years.
Okay. So we're going to hold on to that notion, 5 to 7 years. So in theory, each person that sits in my database right now, I can only really be of value to them every 5 or so years, maybe sooner if they've got a brother, sister, cousin, whatever, friend. But at the basic level, 5 years. That's a pretty long span of like turnover. And so I would always sit there and think, okay, well, how can I increase the frequency for which somebody needs me? I can always show up and add value. I can continue to do that through my follow-up, through my social media posts, through just making sure that I'm an active member of my community or farm for whatever it's worth. But I was like, what are other ways that I can increase the frequency for which I'm super visible and actually needed? Like where somebody's like, I need to reach out to Tessa for this. And that was where I became really obsessed with and kind of got back to my Dutch Bros roots. I know I made this joke when talking about Dutch Bros, but my favorite thing at that time when I managed this coffee shop was that I knew someone for everything. Like whether you needed your hair cut, you needed your car tuned up, you needed like your house cleaned. I always made the joke, your cow tipped, whatever you needed done. Whatever you needed.
You did say that the other night.
I had someone for it. And I started to like kind of get this reputation amongst my friends and people that I knew that was like, oh, if we need something, like we're going to ask Tessa. And so I was like, I wanted to bring that same kind of relevance into my business in real estate. And I think that that's something that a lot of people overlook is how much crossover there is within your day-to-day life. And it also, I love the word integration, much so more than balance, but integration is so important in the way that like, if you go to a certain gym or maybe you love yoga, Pilates, like who knows, maybe you go to Crumble Cookies every week, maybe you shop at a certain grocery store, maybe you get your haircut always at the same place. Like all of us have these certain routines that we've established in our own lifestyles. So how can I find enough ways to be frequent with those people that they've now added me to their list of people that they're going to continue to spread that word? So I know I'm kind of giving this like very general idea here, but it's the concept of those strategic partnerships that go far beyond what we naturally assume of lender, title, blah, 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 and think, okay, well, I have a couple good friends who are wedding planners. Wedding planners, usually that major life event happens pretty near to a purchase of property or potentially a sale of 2 properties to combine into one household. Or, there's oftentimes things that follow other major CLEs, major life events that I can now attach myself to the other people that add value, increase the frequency for which somebody needs me rather than me just getting in front of them. Yeah.
I think also having bring it a little bit more down to earth, right? Like not in that sense, but I mean like, you were talking up here like this concept, but I think having systems in place to do that. Now systems is also a very broad term, but I'll use one. We could do a whole segment on. You don't look very happy about my down to earth.
Yeah, that was.
Well, it was a bad choice of words. I was trying to say a level down, or like bring it like, I don't know. How would you say that?
Okay.
How maybe you can, so I won't do it again.
Well, maybe proceed with your concept.
Think about it though.
Yeah.
Okay, let me know. Is called the professional network, and it ties into exactly what. Now we could do a whole section on this. I'm going to fly through it real quick, but long story short, you're right. You're coming into contact with different people at different places in different parts of your life, and a lot of times, as especially small businesses, they all rely for the most part on referrals. Like most agents have like some marketing strategy, I think, and they have like
hopefully
maybe even some paid stuff, but majority of it comes from referrals. You do good with somebody, they tell another person, so on and so forth. That's really the story with a lot of small businesses. So what you said is that if you have services that, just even the most obvious ones, right? Like insurance, tax, accounting, legal, landscape, roof, or like you go down the list, gyms, small restaurants in the area, whatever it is, you create a list of those people and you contact the owners directly. And what you do is you form an alliance, but what you're in that process, you're really vetting them, because if you're going to be referring, like you were referring a ton of people to your moving company, like you better hope that moving company is doing a good job, right? Mm-hmm. So you're calling them up and you're saying, hey, this is so-and-so with XYZ real estate. Hey, I've had a lot of clients asking me about, do I have someone to use for moving? And, to be honest, I don't. I'd really like to sit down and over a cup of coffee and see, a little bit more about your business, see if my clients might be a good fit. If someone doesn't take that call, forget them. But if most of them will, because like, yeah, you want to start sending me business and sit down for 20 minutes, great. So have that conversation. But what you do at that point, if you feel like they're a good vendor for your clients, is you promote the heck out of them. Mm-hmm. You try to bring in as much business as possible. And in my opinion, at least my own experience, this is where the law of reciprocity comes in. If I have 10 business owners that I am any given day trying to actively refer business to and promote, I can guarantee you, and make sure you tell them, hey, tell them so-and-so sent you. When they start seeing people roll in the door, they're like, oh yeah, Tessa told me that this is like the best gym in Phoenix, or, Ramon told me that this is the best restaurant in this area. Believe me, when real estate becomes a subject in their business, they're going to think of one person and one person only. So that's a very easy way, is like find 10 places, go make those initial contacts, then go refer as many people as you can. It's just going to happen naturally. And set a quarterly lunch that you take that business owner out to lunch on a quarterly basis and get to know them more, see if there's any other ways you can help them. And at the end of the day, just planting more roots with other business owners in your area. Like that is the cheapest lead generation strategy for you. So there you go. Just gave it to you. Cheapest one you're going to find with the highest ROI for 2023.
I would agree. Absolutely. And there's so many ways to just like kind of keep running with that. I don't want us to spin into too much of like a tangent here, but I mean,
just spin.
From those 10 people, right, that you've now added to your vendors list, which arguably could have a lot more than that.
Oh yeah,
but that's like a great basis for it. Every single one of those people you could shoot some content with, do a quick video with, where it's self-promotion for both of you. Maybe you like interview each other, a couple quick questions. They talk about their business. Of course, it builds a lot of that trust. And in my experience, clients love to know that they've got like, there's no better feeling than me getting to feel like or say, oh yeah, I've got my whole team here. And my team is like my agent, my moving company, and all of these people. But if an agent can provide that value, that I do actually have this whole team of people, whether you choose to work with all of them or not, you may have a lender you like, you may have a moving company you trust. But the fact that I come with that much value, that many people that are all in pursuit of the same goal, it has a much better effect. And it also feels good to a client to feel that like doted over and that taken care of.
Yes.
And so there's a lot to do with the like psychological side of how that makes somebody feel. But then now you've got your content. I mean, you could do 10 quick videos, chop those into probably 20, 30 pieces of content that you can now be putting out on social media. That could be in your email stuff. That could be on your website. Yep. Like, I think that if there was one really general concept that I wish more agents understood, it was how much value there is in repurposing. And like, you don't have to quadruple your work in order to have quadruple the reach. Yep. You just have to double down and actually have a system in how you do what you do. if you were to treat those 10 vendors really well, promote their business, push them on social media, invite them to your open houses, invite them to your events, promote their events. When you have a client appreciation party, it's at, you know, Joey's Pizza Parlor, who you also promote. Like, there's so many different ways though that it all intertwines, and you actually in the long term, like, save yourself time, money, and effort
100%.
by doing that and doubling down on that instead of having to like spread yourself so thin.
I can't tell you how many photographers, roofers, construction guys that we ended up not only getting business from, but we also helped them with their own purchases. So, you know, it's just, and I think the social crossover, like their social circle, especially if they have good social media followings, like, and now you're doing videos and shared, and you just get a lot more eyeballs that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. So
were you going to get to the follow-up story?
yeah.
I was too.
Okay.
I was literally going to be like, all right, I got the best story to tell you. All right, well, how should I say it?
Okay, so, well, I know we kind of spun off a little bit.
We spun
here.
off, guys. We got excited about
And
lead
to
generation.
be honest, that's going to happen pretty often. I'm going to be real, because we get going on a topic and then it just kind of keeps going down this rabbit
and
hole.
mind you, before this was ever on a podcast, we were literally just doing this by ourselves at a
this is our dinner conversation.
at dinner. This is what we would do. So now you're sharing it
So
with
we did divert a little bit from the original topic of follow-up. But the reason that we chose this topic in the first place is because we have a great real-time application of follow-up that was not only put into play and executed to perfection, if I do say so myself, by this one right here, but also was appreciated, because I was like, oh, I can understand what's going on here. I see how this is playing out. So I feel like there's not really a better person to explain that than you. So I'm going to let you explain that scenario.
Sure.
And then maybe we'll round it out with something else that relates back to follow up.
Okay. Well, there will be a lot of takeaways in here, and I will make sure to relate it back to, you know, real estate follow up. But yes, my greatest close, and probably world record, world record #1 close for my life. It was meeting Tessa 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago now, on a Zoom call. We were both working with Tariq El Moussa from HGTV and Heather Ray Young from Selling Sunset. And we were on a Zoom call, and this is when I had just merged my my brokerage over to EXP in August of 2020. So I think it was around that time. I think I have the invite still. I've screenshotted all this stuff for years, but I had that invite, and we were on a call where we were integrating my brokerage into EXP and working with Tariq, and Tessa was doing all the brand management, social media, like PR. I mean, you're doing a lot of things for them. And she got on the Zoom call, and I was like, holy shit, like she is a smoke show. Wow. All right. I'm obviously here to merge my brokerage in to, not hit on Tessa, but wow. So, then, follow everyone on social media, how this goes. You meet people, you follow them on social media. And then so, I got the pleasure of stalking her for 2 years, just about on Instagram. And thankfully, she puts forth a lot of content. And so like, I actually got to sit back and get to know her for about 1.5 years. But during that time, I think what was so interesting is that we have the messages still, is like I would message her probably like once a week, but it was always about relevant to the content you're putting out, or you would respond to something that I would put out. And this went on, no joke, for about 1 year. And there were some ups and downs there. Had to watch her go through another relationship. That was painful to watch. Just absolute pain. But guys, this is back to the follow-up. Like, you cannot be discouraged. If they list with another agent, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's better to be the second agent. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, you can't get discouraged. You got to stay in the game, stay focused, right? You can't be married to the timeline. You have to be married to the outcome. And so, I was, whatever, staying focused, staying there. And, one thing led to another, where I ended up moving to Phoenix. And one thing that I never wanted to do, because I didn't want to screw this up. So I was like, all right, I know Tessa from a business standpoint. And we went back about some personal things, but I never crossed the line, because I was like, well, 1 million guys cross the line in her DMs every day. So I don't want to be lumped in that category. But then again, we've kind of talked to each other on a professional basis. I won't do a bait and switch. And so now when I say bait and switch, how that relates to also to real estate is like, don't bait someone in with a cash offer and then come to the listing and say, or do the whole, yeah, I have a buyer who's coming from, and you don't really have anything. Like, just be honest and upfront, but don't do the bait and switch. So anyways, during all this time, especially when I moved to Phoenix, or moved to Scottsdale, I was like, all right, so I'm not going to message her. Well, I'm going to still talk to her on social media, but I'm going to try to run into her organically in Scottsdale. This is my master plan. So I was like, all right, what church does she go to? Where does she go get flowers at? Where her and her friends like to go? Basically anything I could do to stalk. Now I know it sounds really weird, but I'm not, it wasn't going to cross the line. This is all good intention. Yes. And so after 6 months of failing to run into her organically, which I went to the church, I tried both times, 9 and 11, couldn't figure it out. And so anyways, I was posting on social media and I asked a question about where the best spicy margarita in town was. And she gave me a recommendation. And I told her, okay, cool. We should tomorrow at 6:30. Like, how does that sound? And she was like, okay, yeah, cool. Or she just liked it, actually. I think you just liked it on Instagram, the little thumbs up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so is that a yes? And then she went, yes. She said yes in the message. Long story short, she didn't show up the next day. That's okay. There was a strategy behind that. But I'm gonna back up for a sec. So we're going to get right to where she didn't show up for our first date. We're going to stop right there and go back. I think the value in all this is that before I even met her, I knew her. Now, you can argue I didn't really know her, but I knew her a lot better than most would if they weren't watching. So going back to like your prospects and your clients, like thinking about like watching what they do, like actually taking it in and like taking notes. Now, my form of notes was screenshots. So I knew her favorite flowers. I knew what church she went to. I knew what else I know pretty good. Like all the places your favorite snacks, restaurants, what you ordered. Yeah. And so I knew all those things ahead. So like I was extremely confident in our first date, which now we'll get back to that. So she stood me up. But here's the thing. And guys, if this helps you at all, or maybe it doesn't, whatever, if you're single, not if you're, married or anything.
Yes. Plug your ears.
Yeah. But I was like, she didn't show up. What the heck? And I told some friends and they're like, well, did you confirm with her the day of? Remember, messaged her one night. It was the date for the next day, 24 hours later. And they said, like, well, you didn't confirm with her. I was like, look, if I confirmed, it would have been a for sure out. She would have said no. She'd have been like, oh, hey, like
something came up. And
then, oh, okay. Like, what am I going to do? Go take a rain check? This is not, I don't want to do that. So I was quiet, didn't say anything. And I went to the bar or went to the restaurant we were going to meet at, and she didn't show up. So basically I sat there for about 15 minutes, embarrassed, as you could imagine. And the point though is that by not following up, or at least not confirming, she didn't show up. And I'm like, hey, like, are you here? She's like, oh my God, like this guy's really like what the heck? And so she felt bad. The guilt trip. So I'm like, oh, she felt bad for standing me up. So like she was kind of obligated to at least meet me with me for real the next time. And we did, and the rest is history. But the whole point I'm making about the follow-up and all this is that it's like, number one, play the long game. Okay. We're talking about, I'm not kidding, 2 years. I think like we met in August of 2020 and I met you in the first time on the 20th of June in 2022. So almost a 2-year close. From initial contact to close. We won't get into what the close was, but first date, we'll call that. We'll call that the close. To first date, right? To first appointment. How's that? The second thing though is that like to know your prospect really well, and then also engaging with them with only a intention of adding value. Mm-hmm. I don't think like I never asked for one thing. I asked for opinions, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, we went back and forth on different quotes or different like philosophies about real estate, business, life. Book recommendations. Yes, all of that before and it was literally almost 2 years until I actually made a formal ask for anything. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really important too, is like, if people see value in you, they will ask you. Right. And so I think that just staying in the pocket, staying relevant, staying present, but also I think you made this point earlier, like doing things that are relevant for that person, not what's relevant for you. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And, hopefully it works out for you the way it did for me.
Yeah. Well, and Of course, if there's, it's best if there's a match between what's relevant for your prospect and what's relevant for you. You don't want to be like acting wildly out of character in order to stay relevant to somebody
Correct.
else. So obviously it did work out very well.
Yeah.
He loves to bring up the fact that I accidentally stood him up on our
I wouldn't
first
say it was
date.
an accident. You know, I have the receipts.
I mean,
so.
it certainly was.
Look, it's okay. Water under the
Look
bridge
at us now. Look at the House of Agents. We're
Yeah.
here. And that, of course, is a great example of long-term follow-up, staying relevant, paying attention to your prospect,
Paying attention.
and then, you know, really following through with that follow-up. And so as much as we're kind of joking a little bit about this whole situation, I mean, the story is very true. That is all exactly what happened.
Story.
Minus a few details, but that was the general concept of how this came to be.
Yeah, and I think the like going back, because I'm always trying to make sure that if someone's listening, we give them the tangible, like how can we bring that right back down to how this can function in your business. And I think that a lot of times, like, you might overlook, like, I knew the name of the flowers and the color and where to get them at. You know, you don't need to know like that level of detail about things, but you know, you think about, and we might overlook what someone's dog's name is. Like, dogs are like an extension of the family. I wouldn't even say extension. They are the family.
Yeah.
So like, even just having that in the database and knowing, you know, what that dog's name is, or knowing where their kid just went to college at, like, all these small things only matter till you need them. And when you need them, you better hope you know them.
Yeah.
And so if any of you have ever been caught in this situation, which, hey, I am guilty as charged, going to make a phone call being like, these notes are awful. I have no idea who I'm calling. I just know their name, number, and I think I remember talking to them. That's really important to like take note of the details.
Yeah.
Because that's what impresses people when, like, even when someone remembers your name at a networking event and you meet them and then you get back in contact with them, you know, 30 minutes later at the event and they address you by your name, you're like, wow, it makes you feel important. And so I think we all have the opportunity to do that with our clients right now.
Yeah. And I mean, one of my favorite things, we have such an advantage with social media these days
That
because
you can see it all.
well, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, of course, take notes, make sure that you're being aware of these things when you're having those conversations or interactions with someone. But also, if all else fails, if all you have is somebody's name, phone number, email, you could usually find them on social media, but hopefully you also got some form of connection with them on social media, because that's one of the most valuable things these days. Like, before you pick up the phone, go check their social media. Maybe they have that they're like, their Instagram story is that they, you know, just landed in Texas and they're going to their sister's wedding, or maybe they just got a new puppy, or it's almost the holidays and they're going somewhere, whatever. Like, you would be so blown away at how much of an advantage you have if you just take that little bit of extra initiative to pay attention to, you know, the details that people are sharing on social media and the context clues that you can kind of pick up from those kind of things. And
I forgot to even mention stalking your Facebook, Instagram. You don't really, I think you do have a LinkedIn, but it's not very, it's not like extremely updated. Pinterest board. That's a good one, guys. Pinterest boards.
He's studied the Pinterest board.
What else? Yeah. All those.
Yes. Full embarrassment.
TikTok.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyways, we're good on those, but you did get a lot of context clues by being able to pay attention to that stuff. And so I know that we're kind of probably coming to a close here, no pun intended, on this on this episode. And so I think that it would be good to just kind of like, I'm going to give my last thoughts on follow-up here,
closing
and you
statement.
give your closing statement, and we'll kind of leave it at that. But I think a overall general thing that I would say is we don't need to sit here and harp on and tell you how important follow-up is. If you don't know that by now, you've probably already missed the boat on how much, action you need to take. But hopefully this allows you to see that it's more accessible and probably easier than you're making it out to be. Because so often, especially for our newer agents out there, they probably hear follow-up and think that just means, I have to call all the A names in my database this week and I have to like ask them how they are and if they want to sell yet. And, we're taught a lot of these kind of archaic and very basic ways, and though some of that can work, it's just kind of expanding your mind a bit to, and I'm going to go back to my favorite little word here, being integration. Like, how can you bring in the follow-up to people who you're already connected with in a way that is more integrated with what you're doing and what's already organically going on in your life? Because if you can find a way to just put in that little extra bit of effort, pay attention to what somebody's doing, what they're interested in, remember some stuff about them, even if you remember nothing at all, taking that extra minute to say, hey, I hope you had a great weekend. Looking forward to the holidays. Do you have any travel coming up? Like simple little interactions that show somebody that you care. It's going to go so far for you when it comes to your follow-up, because again, frequency without relevance is simply annoyance. But if you can make yourself more relevant and you can increase the frequency for which people see you, you're gonna have a much easier time, staying top of mind, building that like, know, and trust, and ultimately turning that into deals,
into dollars,
dollar bills.
Okay, that was great. I don't know how I'm gonna top that, but I would say that I'm not as well spoken, so I'll try to.
But you're cute, so it works.
Oh, thank you. Let's see here. I would say that so when you're looking at your follow-up, quote unquote, your contacts, you're looking at like someone's social media, whatever it is, someone you want to get in contact with, actually think this in your head. How can I add value to this person's life? I can't tell you how many times I've been pleasantly surprised. Somebody calls me and says, hey, you know what? Like, I think they're calling me about one thing, and they're like, hey, I got, 3 tickets to the Suns game tonight. Do you want to go? It's like, oh, wow. Sure. I mean, yeah, great. Now, you don't have to be giving somebody of monetary value, but genuinely think about when you come across somebody, like, is there a way you can help them? And then don't ask for permission. Just do it. And when you're on calls, like, and you do get a hold of somebody, like, that's, I think, why your follow-up might be irrelevant sometimes, is because when you do get in contact with them, the questions you're asking don't give you enough ammunition to follow up with purpose down the road. So be super intentional about thinking to yourself when you're talking to any client, because at some point you'll just about follow up with everybody you talk to at some point. Think about, how can I add value to this person's life? But first you got to know a little bit about them and their life. So make that your point of intention when you're speaking to somebody. And then I'd say the other side of the actual follow-up is, it is not sexy and glamorous, and it's not like sitting there for 2-3 hours on the phone, on your social media, going through contacts. Like, yeah, there's some days where it feels great, but other days it's like a drag to do it. But just know, like, remember, the moment you feel that this is a drag, I don't want to do it, your competition is also feeling that too. So like, your ability to go to your desk, to your office, your home office, whatever it might be, day in and day out, and execute the mundane, boring stuff that other people think there's a better way to do it. If you keep executing that, you will build a massive business. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of like the boring, mundane work I've learned in real estate is what gets you the result.
Yeah, very true. And honestly, could be argued that applies to most things in life. Same thing's true in the gym. I mean, you're not going to have every day where you're like pumped and feel amazing, but the fact that you do it consistently over time is what gets you the result.
Yep. I agree.
Great closing statement.
Thank you.
Incredible. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Of course, we shared some valuable tips for you. Ramon dropped a few golden nuggets in case you missed those. Yeah.
I counted like 5.
Okay. Many. A plethora
of
of
golden
a whole
nuggets.
platter of nuggets.
We're just going to call this episode
a 20 piece.
golden nuggets. Yeah. 20-piece golden nugget.
So, but those things truly, they can all be taken, whether it was from our, personal story or the things that are a lot more directly related to real estate and your business. But all of those little things put into practice are going to make a big difference. Understand the power of that. And I hope that you guys enjoyed our little banter back and forth, peeking into our conversations that we normally have. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.
And if you liked it, if you thought it was funny,
subscribe, like it.
If you took something away, had a light bulb moment, do me a favor, like and subscribe.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. It is how new people find the show. Until next time, friends.